All right, guys, so I'm gonna try to do better making videos. I know I've been really slacking, and I got a few comments of people saying they wanted to see more videos on this combination, the ECU I use, and just in general, what I do to get this thing down the track. So this is actually a pretty good subject right now that I'm gonna talk about in this video, because there's not a lot of information out there on it. It's a fairly new thing for ECU Master, and that is the V3 software. Okay, basically the V3 software is kind of like a retroactive software for the older ECU that kind of is the same as the newer EMU Pro. Okay, so the functionality is much better than the V2, okay? And I mentioned it a little bit in a couple other videos about the CO2 boost control. So, like I told you guys before, we got the CO2 boost control now. You've got, one is your pressure, one is your, goes to your sensor for reading the pressure, and then the ECU can, obviously put dome pressure on. So, I did mention a little bit about that in, I think, 2 videos ago, but I'm gonna go over some other features in the V3 software. And also I'm gonna show you guys how I fixed the nitrous on this car that gave us such a fit down in Bradenton for that no time race. I'm gonna show you what happened, and a lot of it was my fault. So, but to start, let me grab my laptop. I'll open the software, and I'll start showing you guys some of the features in V3 versus V2. So let me grab that and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm gonna go through this pretty quick. I got both softwares open. I got the V2 and the V3. As you can see, the V3 is kind of like a dark mode, kind of like Fuel Tech and Holly and stuff like that. So it definitely looks better, it looks cooler. But I want to go through some of the main differences. I'm not going to go really through everything that's the same. I just want to go through the differences. Otherwise, it would take me too long. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'll start with, let me get rid of these. So I'm going to start with sensors. The sensors, you're going to find your, basically your triggers for your cam and your crank in the sensor inputs. Whereas in V2, you would find that in ignition, okay? That's gonna be in ignition. Over here, it's in your digital inputs. So there's your primary and your cam trigger. You can set up sensitivity, and there's a vehicle speed sensor. So those are your digital inputs, like a hall sensor, okay? So that's a difference there. Switches is also a difference, whereas over here, like in V2, every menu has a thing where you can pick like an analog input for something. Whereas in the V3, you have to go designate that as a switch, or you have to designate it like in this section here. Let's see, user switches, right here. So user switch 1, I'm using analog input number 5, okay? And then in user switch 2, I'm using analog input 6. Now, when you go to, like, for instance, in the way I have it set up, I'm using analog 6 for my nitrous, okay? So if I go over to the nitrous, right here, parameters, you can see, oh no, aux 4 is what I'm using. That's the output, sorry. User switch 2, okay? That's what's gonna activate it. So when I put 12 volts to that, that means the nitrous is active. Then it's gonna do its thing, and it's gonna go off of this here, which, you can set parameters in here. And it actually gives you what horsepower, the nitrous is. It tells you when do you want it to activate. I got it at above 70% duties, 70% on the TPS. I have an RPM minimum. So it's not going to activate until 5,800 RPM, which I have my 2-step set at right now around 5,100. So that means when I'm on the 2-step, it's not going to be on. As soon as I let go, and the RPM climbs past 5,800, the nitrous comes on. All that being said, it never actually worked, but I'm going to explain why after I'm done showing you guys the differences in the software. I'll explain why it ended up not working, and I did end up fixing it. So, but anyway, that's one of the main differences there. Okay. Engine start is pretty much the same. You know, you got your after start warm up, or your cranking. Your warm up after start would be like if you want to do ignition lock. I didn't do any of that, but you can if you want. Fueling, this is where you're going to have your like your short term, basically your corrections, and this is how you set that up, your parameters. I have it enabled, and then you have some different things here: minimum RPM, maximum RPM, coolant, your TPS limit. I have everything pretty much maxed out because I want it always trimming. Okay, I want it always to be trimming. So that's that. You can set up fuel cut. You can set up some guards, your lambda guards. You can do your flex fuel. This is basically for your injector wizard. Tells you what the injectors are, the phase, the injector's calibration, and the injection angle, that's no different than the V2, okay? I'm just trying to go over the differences, not the similarities, okay? One of the differences, overrun fuel, which is basically when I believe that this is like when you let off the gas and all that flames come out of your exhaust. That's like a really, I don't know, basically for show. I don't know if there's any like utility for that, but NOx sensors, that's basically the same as the NOx sensors here. Idle is the same. Okay, here's a big difference. Functions, okay? Functions are basically like, I think in V2 they call it, let's see, what do they call that in V2? I forget. Outputs. Yeah, so basically in V2 you would go to parametric output, and then you can set up like some conditions for an output to activate. In V3 it's called functions, okay? So let's go over one of the functions I have. I'm only using one right now, which is the nitrous spooling. I'm using H-bridge 1A to spool the nitrous, okay? So let me get rid of this for now, and I'm gonna show you how to set one up. There's a lot of confusion on this, so but it's really easy, okay, to set that up. I'm just gonna do like the way I have the nitrous spool set up, and but you can get creative and do all kinds of stuff. So let's go to what output we want to do. Let's pick H-bridge 1. I'm not using that right now, and we're gonna double click there, and you get all these different operators, okay? So is true, is false, equal, not equal, less, or whatever. You get all these different things you can choose, okay? I'm not claiming to know all these, but what I use is this one right here, greater, okay? And then we're gonna pick TPS, so you can just start typing TPS and select TPS, hit OK. So I want my TPS to be greater than, we're gonna put in 60%. Okay, so when the TPS is greater than 60%, it's gonna trigger this output. Okay, that's number one. So that we're gonna hit OK on that. That's gonna be our first operator. Then we're gonna click these three dots again because we want and I want my, we're gonna go, let's see, we're gonna go less on the map. Okay, so I'm gonna choose map. All right, click OK, and then I want 150 kPa on that. So I'm gonna type 150, click OK, hit OK, okay, and there we go. There's our function, The function is done. And once I hit OK, that's going to be locked in. I'm not going to do that because I've already got mine set in there. But essentially what that means is when you put the accelerator down and your TPS hits 60%, okay, that's your first condition. The second condition is going to be below 150 kPa. So the nitrous is going to come on, and it's going to spool the nitrous, or it's going to spool the map, the boost, I should say. I'm confusing myself here. It's going to spool until it hits 150 kPa. As soon as it hits that, it's going to shut off. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a window where the nitrous is not on. Okay, I do not want the nitrous on when I'm sitting there on the trans brake and I'm in the beams. I don't want it continually staying on, so I need to shut it off at a certain point. And what I found is that 150 kPa is enough momentum to keep it going up to my target, which I'm trying to launch at right around 200. Okay, so once it shuts off at 150, it has enough momentum to carry it to 200. And I can get there in roughly like 3 seconds, which is perfect. Okay, and then it's just gonna maintain that 200 kPa until I let the button go. And then my nitrous activation will take over after that. And then once it hits 5,800 RPM, the nitrous will come back on. Okay, so that's how you create that window where you want it to spool, and then there's a window where it's not on, and then it's gonna kick back on after a certain RPM. And that'll carry out till the end of the run. Or I can add a condition in there where, let's say you don't want it on after 9,000 RPMs just to be safe or whatever. You can put that in there too. Okay, so that's a big difference. And then if you want to get rid of all those, you right click and then you hit remove operator, and then it removes all that. Right click, remove operator. Okay, and this will just put back to virtual and hit cancel. So, and you can name them too. So I named this one nitrous spool, and as you can see, the same thing, 60% and then below 150 kPa. And that's what works perfect for that. So they seem a little confusing, the functions, but once you get in there and start messing with it, it's pretty easy. You don't have to type all that stuff out, all the, the asterisks and all those different characters. You don't have to type that out. There's actually selections in there, okay? Drive-by-wire, that's basically the same as V2. What else? DSG gearbox, I guess that's for GTRs or whatever. The CAN, serial, log gauges, that's all the same. Sport, launch control has its own boost setting. So on launch control, right here, if you click that, and keep in mind, when you select CO2 in your boost, everything else you select that has to do with boost is always going to be dome pressure, not boost, okay? So when I select boost here, it's actually dome pressure, okay? So right here, you can have like a rotary switch to pick different, select different boost levels for your launch. And if you don't have a rotary switch, it always goes off the first one, okay? So right now I have 65 kPa on the dome, which ends up giving me like 200 kPa on the launch, okay? So as far as I'll give you a little kind of insight on as far as when I was testing on Friday, I found that the more boost I made, it wasn't the same ratio of dome pressure versus boost pressure. So I had to, in order to make more boost, you got to add more dome pressure than you did previously, if that makes sense, okay? It's not like a one-to-one thing. It's exponential as you go up in boost, okay? That's how it was working on this car. Probably every car is different, every motor is different, so you gotta test that. It kind of bit me in the butt in the finals, or not the finals, but in my final race with James. It kind of bit me in the butt because when I raced him, I added a bunch more dome pressure. I'm like, okay, I got to add a lot more to beat this guy. And I added a bunch, but it only gave me a few more pounds of boost. So as you can see, it's like it's exponential. I needed to add way more to get more boost, the boost I needed. Okay. So the last pass I made like 380 kPa, which is right around 40 some pounds of boost, right around 40 pounds of boost. But I basically added a lot more dome pressure to get that. So yeah, that's just something I need to do more testing with. I only had Friday to test, and it just wasn't enough. I never got up into those ranges to where I knew what it was going to do. So I just kind of took a shot at it and added what I thought would be right, but obviously I needed way more. And even if I would have added all of it, I don't know if I would have beat him anyway. Maybe that plus the nitrous, I would have had a better shot. But regardless, this video is about kind of just learning the software. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, as far as the differences, what I can tell you is the V3 is very much more superior to the V2. During launch control, the RPMs stay way more steady than they do in the V2. Okay, acceleration enrichment is way better in V3 than it is in V2. So if you have an EMU Black, and I recommend totally to just bite the bullet, get the V3 and start learning it. It's far superior, okay? So let me go in the car and I'm gonna kind of go over the mistake I made as far as, why the nitrous stopped working and how I went and fixed it. Okay guys, so I'm in the car, got the ECU on, and first thing I'm gonna show you is how the nitrous comes on with the pedal. So basically when I put the pedal down to 60%, you can hear the switch coming on, okay? You can hear it clicking the nitrous solenoid, okay? That's running through a relay in this box here, okay? So what I did originally, I'll tell you what I did originally, and then I'll tell you what I did to fix it, okay? Originally what I did is on the actual nitrous, so that right there is the function that we just went over on the pedal, okay? And then when the nitrous comes on the, with this switch here, I had this switch, this is switch 2, that goes to the ECU and basically activates the nitrous setup, okay? I had that going through an H bridge, basically going directly to the nitrous solenoid. So I was using it like as the relay, right? So it was coming out of the ECU and going directly to, because the H bridges they're higher current, so they can activate different things that require more current. So I thought, I should have done more research, but I thought that it would be fine activating the nitrous solenoid, but it wasn't, okay? It went into some kind of protection mode or overload protection, and I could not figure out, I thought it was a relay somewhere, but it ended up not being a relay. It went into some kind of protection and just stopped working. I shut the ECU off, turned it back on, took power out of it, everything, and it never reset. Now, when I got home and the car sat for a while, like it sat for like 2 days, or maybe 3 days. Yeah, I think it sat for 2 or 3 days. And when I came back, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and add another relay. Instead of having just one relay and then running the H bridge straight to the nitrous solenoid, I'm gonna run the H bridge to another relay, okay? Once I did that, everything's fine, works perfect now. So there was something, and then what it was doing was, once the H bridge kind of went into some kind of fault mode, it was taking and dragging the relay when I would do the pedal. It was dragging that to ground. So then nothing was working, okay? So it was definitely my fault. So now what we did is we added another relay right there, and that's gonna be the nitrous spool H bridge, okay? So now it's on 2 separate relays. So the nitrous solenoid has 2 relays, when one is on and one is off, like they won't conflict, basically. Basically, there was a conflict there. That's my fault. I messed that up, and I should have recognized that, but it took me a couple days to think about it. And then once, you know, I figured it out, everything works fine, and I won't make that mistake again. So yeah, we rewired it a little bit, added that extra relay for the H bridge, and we should be good to go. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I know it's getting long. The only other thing I need to do is let's shut this off, figure out coils, because we had to, I had to switch back to the Audi coils, which I didn't want to do, but they work pretty good. I had to make a patch harness. So I have this little extra patch harness here that I use to connect to the original, where the IGN coils were hooked to. But one of them went bad. So I'm thinking of just, if one went bad now, I'm thinking of just getting completely different coils, maybe getting some Fuel Tech, some name brand stuff. These coils were not cheap. I mean, they weren't like Amazon coils. These were, I got these off of a website, and it was for a Mercury outboard, like an Optimax Mercury outboard. That's what these coils are. Maybe I was overdwelling them. I don't know. I dwelled them pretty good, like 5 or 6 milliseconds at 13 volts. And I'm not sure, maybe the 16 volt battery when I was using that before. Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention. I took the 16 volt battery out because of, that's a whole nother story, but I'll give you a quick little recap on that. The 16 volt battery was giving me fits because I just could not get all the data I have over the years of tuning this thing was all on the 13 volts from the alternator, okay? So all my tune-ups and all my VE tables were based on that. The 16 volt battery just threw everything off, okay? Because of the fuel pressure curve was different. Kind of hard to explain, but the fuel pressure curve was totally different. It was making more fuel pressure with similar boost. Even when I had the base pressure set the same, it was making more fuel pressure at the top, you know, because it's a 1-to-1 regulator. So it was just making more fuel volume, and it was changing the map totally. So for this race, I went back to the alternator, put the 12 volt system back in it, and it worked perfect. My map, my tunes, my VE tables all came back in, and I needed a little bit of adjustment, but I was able to use all my old tune-ups, okay? Maybe in the future, I'll revisit that and go back to the 16 volts, but it's gonna require a lot more attention to the VE table with the 16 volts, okay? So keep that in mind if you guys ever do that. But back to the coils. Yeah, like I said, I may change coils because these were for an outboard, and I figured they would be pretty good. They were a little cheaper than like Fuel Tech coils or Holley coils, but not much cheaper. So I figured they were good, but they went bad. So, and these things here, I've had these for 6 years, and they've been pretty faithful. And you know, we made 40 pounds of boost, and it did not hiccup whatsoever on these coils. So anyway, guys, hope y'all learned something about this V3 software. I totally recommend it. This is the future that ECU Masters is going with. And if you ever upgraded to their Pro, that software is much more similar to that. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Sorry for the length of it. I know that was kind of long, but I feel like it's really good information that to get. So anyway, I'll check you guys next time.